Hi everyone.
Hello.
Hi, how you doing? Let's turn on the video for a couple minutes to see you guys. How are you all?
אני מצוין, מרגיש 10.
Coffee. No, everybody is happy with the material. Everybody's catching up.
Yes, thank you.
I would appreciate any comment you might have, and I'll try to comment it as much as I can. So, what we're going to do today is really a special topic. If you're going to the Academy City and you're going to the special topics, we're going to talk about merger and acquisitions. This topic is really, I think it's one of the most important topics and close to the last one before relative valuation. And then we sum up everything together. If you look at our valuation, let's take, anybody want to pick a company?
Amazon.
Amazon, let's do Amazon. Here we go. Let's choose United States. And use 2019. So everything's try to make sure that the numbers make sense. If there's an error, you just need to fix them. Amazon, I know it's the numbers are good. By the way, all those numbers coming from the SEC, which tells you that even from the SEC, the numbers sometimes are incorrect, but that's life. Anyway, so where are we heading to? We kind of, hey, by the way, I didn't really choose probably the industry. Amazon, which industry should we put it in? The probably should be some computer. I would say that it's definitely computer services, but there might be more. You might have to choose also retail or internet retail probably. See, I think there should be internet. Yeah, here we go. So you need to put the proportion also according to what they're saying in the financial statements, and then you get the beta and you get the growth. So here we're getting all that stuff. We went over previous sessions, and now we're going to the valuation, we're getting the WACC, we're getting all that stuff. And then assuming that we got to the point, we got to the net present value. By the way, I will sum up everything next week. So I will go over a lot of things that we have done. So for now, for today, I would like to focus on what we needs to adjust, which is minority interest. And minority interest, you always will find it's today. If you look at the consolidated financial statements of big companies, I doubt that you will not find that account. Another account that you probably will find called goodwill, and I'm going to cover that one as well today. So what is minority interest? It's really something that belongs to other shareholders, but to make that clear, that's what we have the session today. So on the net present value, this one represents the net present value of the whole company. We're going to reduce the debt, and then we're going to reduce it by minority interest. Whatever left belongs to the shareholders. After we reduce those numbers, we divide by numbers of shares, we get to the intrinsic value per share. Okay? So how are we going to do that? We're going to, if you go to the, as I said before, to the Academy City and you're going to special topics, you click on this one. This is mine already. You don't have the little man. You click on merger and acquisition, you get to this page. And there is a nice Excel I made specially for you. You click on it, download. I haven't had the time to make it like a mini simulator like I did in the other sections, but it will come probably by next time, for next time. Here you have the video form. Last time I was teaching that, so you can view that one, and I will upload the video of today. So let's open up the Let's open up that Excel. Now the Excel has two parts. One is merger and one is acquisition. What's the difference? First of all, in a merger, you take two companies that could be equal size, they could be different sizes, and you merge them together. It's like a marriage. Like everybody brings his assets, everyone brings his liability, you combine it together, and a couple, like a couple, the shareholders of the two companies share everything together. So in this example, we have company A and we have a company B, and both of them have assets, both of them have some liabilities, and in which of them we have some shareholders. Now, totally different shareholders. Could be that you might hold some shares in both companies, but mostly there will be shareholders that are not the same one in both companies. So you combine those two together and you build up a new company. What is really that means? We're taking all the assets and put them here. Take all the assets, put them there here. That's why we get 1,000. It's the 500 plus the 500. The other assets, 500 plus 500, we get also 1,000. So we have total of assets of the two companies together of 2,000. At the same time, we have debt in both companies. The total debt of two companies together, it's 1,400. No surprise. The equity will be a 600, which is really the sum of 300 plus 300. This equity is held by the shareholders of company A and the shareholders of company B. This is a very simple case. More complicated will be in which they will start arguing, well, it's true that our book value are the same, but we have a lot of more intangibles. That's what shareholders of company A might say. Company B will say, we have a lot of other assets also not in the books, and therefore we should get more shares in the new company. Those are common arguments you will see in before the merger takes place. The key point is, but it's that you're having an entity in being shared by the shareholders of those two companies. Another point, and the reason I put the same numbers to emphasize that it doesn't have to be that a small company merge into a big company or a big company into a small company. There's many cases in which you will see small company merge into existing big company. And then you don't really establish a new company. A and B, it's really A when you transfer all the assets of B into A and you transfer the liability to A, and then A issues some stock to the shareholders of B, and then you cancel company B from existence. But those are more complicated legal transactions. The essence of it from finance point of view, we have a new entity, and that entity being shared by the shareholders of those two companies. The accounting is relatively simple, adding the assets, adding the liabilities, and therefore it's quite simple. When it becomes to be more complicated, it is the case in acquisitions. Acquisition is totally different transaction from merger. As I said, in a merger, you're merging the assets, you're merging the liabilities, thereby the equity. On the other hand, in acquisition, company A acquiring the shares of company B. I will repeat it because it's so crucial, okay? Company A, the company itself, not the shareholders of company A. It's the company itself using their own money to buy the equity of company B. In another word, if there was a shareholders here or shareholders of company B, they're selling their shares to company A. So the cash will go down from the bank account of company A. Let me give an example, and let's take a very simple example in which company A paying 300 for 100% of the shares of company B. What it really means? It means that company, let me copy this one. I don't want to destroy the structure of the simulation. Let me copy it here and explain what it really means. That means when company A is buying the shares of company B, the cash in company A goes down. So if they paid 300, that means they have left with 200 as cash. So far, so good. And from accounting point of view, it means they invested in company B. So we will call it investment in company B. And how much they invested? They invested 300. So the books are still balanced. Total asset, it's the same. Simply, instead of having 500 cash, we have 300 investment in company B. Okay? So that's a very simple case. Okay? Pay attention. Nothing really happened in company B. The only things happen is that the shareholders of company B is no longer the shareholders. The shareholders of company B became to be company A. Company A is holding all the shares of company B. Another thing to notice, nothing really happened to the equity of company A. Okay? The same shareholders of company A continue holding the shares of the equity of company A. So the only difference is that the cash in company goes down by 300, and there's a new account presenting the fact that now company A is holding the equity of company B. Is that clear, guys? Let me take a little pause and see what you guys have to say. Is that clear? Anybody just give me a sign of life?
Yeah, it's clear.
Is that clear? Good. That's good. Notice I used a simple example. The acquired book value of 300, they in fact bought, they paid 300. So there's no really overpaying, underpaying. They paid exactly what the book value of company B is. By the way, if you have a good eyes, and I ask you in the exam, you know, before the acquisition, total cash was 1,000. After company A acquired company B, how much cash really left in those two companies together? Anybody wants to help?
200 from company A, and then companies B's 500.
Correct. And therefore, the total cash will be 700. Does that make sense?
It's
Yeah.
just
Yes.
it's just 1,000 minus the 300 in equity that was paid in cash by company A.
Right, because somebody have token. By the way, if we look at company A, this is the non-consolidated financial statement of company A. This is the book value of the company A, the balance sheets of company A. And this balance sheet, okay, does not, it's not the consolidated. And it has some account here, 300. What do we really do in consolidation? And that's really a good way not to get lost, even if you want to. Okay, what are those 300 represent? And why do we ask company A to do consolidations? The idea is instead of presenting the 300 by itself in the consolidated, we want that the consolidated financial statement will represent what those 300 representing. In another word, these 300 that I just erased, they represent indeed the difference between total assets of B minus total liabilities of B. So in consolidations, we in fact trying to put the assets and the liabilities of B, which represent our investments in B. So if our investment in B is 300, we would like to present it as addition of 500 in cash, which is giving me 700. It is represent addition 500 to assets. So I have 1,000. And on the other hand, we assume, okay, responsibility for another 700 liability. So in another word, adding 500, adding 500, adding 700, we really represented the 300 that was here in a way that is showing what is the underlying assets and liability of those 300. And this is the consolidated financial statement. By the way, this is exactly what you see here. We have 700 cash because it really representing the 200 that company A have left with, plus the 500 of company B. Same things about the total assets. It is really the 500 plus the 500. So in other words, we took all the assets, we added them to the balance sheet of company A. This 1,400, it's adding the 700 to the debt of company A. Therefore, we got those 1,400. Okay? Pay attention, which is extremely important to notice, the equity of company A have not changed. It has no reason to change because the only transaction took place here that A have purchased the equity of B. And company A have purchased another asset. And in the consolidations, we only presented 300 in a way that reflect the total assets and liability of B. But it really has nothing to do, or it doesn't affect at all, the equity of company A. I hope that's clear because it's really confusing first time you see it. Well, this is totally different than a merger. In a merger, we're combining the assets, we're combining the liabilities and equity, and that's a merger. On the other hand, in acquisition, company A disposed some of the cash in order to buy the equity of company B. So less cash exists in company A after acquiring the shares of company B. The owner of company B takes the money and goes away. So 300 have left the system. So in the consolidation, no surprise, we have 300 less cash, which make a lot of sense. The owner of company A stays the same owner. No change there. There's no reason for this one to be a different number. More questions? Any questions on that simple first round example of when A acquiring 300, paying the book value of company B? Any questions?
Do you mind explaining again why the equity on the consolidated is just the company's A equity? I didn't understand why it changed.
I tell you what, let's do the whole things again. Don't worry, it's worth the time. Honestly, it's worth the time. You know, this is the balance sheets of company A before they acquired company B. A second after the acquisition, the cash goes down and they have a new account of 300. That's simple accounting. And this is not a consolidated financial statement. This is the financial statement of company A, the balance sheet of company A second after the acquisition. No reason for the equity to change. This transaction of buying some assets using cash doesn't affect the equity of company A. So far, we're happy?
Yes.
Good. Now, what the accounting rule says, you know, don't present the books of company A in this way if company A has acquired more than 50% of the shares of company B. By the way, I will use the time now as we're reviewing why company A has to do consolidated financial statements? The rules in accounting says if one company have a substantial effect or substantial influence on another company, they should prepare financial consolidated balance sheets, income statement, and the others. And if company A buy 100% of company B, they cannot just present their books this way. They have to prepare consolidated financial statements. So let me take this one and recopy it again here. Okay? I just copied the same things again on the right side. And I'm going to show how you move from regular financial statement balance sheet of A into what's supposed to be the consolidated. So I redo it manually. Consolidated balance sheet of A, okay? So the rule says, instead of presenting this account, take it away. And instead of presenting it this way, put the underlying assets and liability that representing those 300. Pay attention, when I'm going to represent that 300 in a different way, it has nothing to do with this equity account. I deleted those 300 and I'm going to replace them fair enough? This 300 that was here reflect, yeah, the effect, the difference between the assets and liability of company B. So I said, okay, let's erase that 300 and let's put these ones instead. See, I'm not really, it's true that those 300 is like the equity because the equity is exactly the 1,000 minus 700. But really what I'm doing is I'm erasing the 300 and copying that difference. 1,000 minus 700 give me 300. So I'm taking the 500, the first 500, and adding it here. So I get 700. I take the 500 here, add it to here, I get 1,000. I take the 700 here, add it to this 700, I get the 1,400. That's why the equity does not change. I hope that's clearer.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Wait,
this is a
so the
very important
investment-
point because
I have a question.
go ahead.
So the investment, the 300 that you took away, the investment in company B that was paid in cash, where is it now on the consolidated
In the
balance sheet?
consolidated, it's gone. It shouldn't be there because I replaced that by adding the 1,000 and the 700. In the
It's in the cash.
non-consolidated,
Consolidated.
in the non-consolidated, let's maybe write it here. Usually you don't write it really. You don't write non-consolidated. You just say balance sheets of company A. But I would just re-emphasize the point. Non-consolidated. Balance sheet of A. This is the way it will look like. These are the two financial statements, balance sheets that the company will publish. One, it's the regular. In the regular, you will see it's in this way, investment in company B. In the consolidated, that account gone. I replaced it. Okay, I replaced it by adding the 1,000 and adding the 700.
And also adding the cash of the company that you have acquired, right?
Correct.
Because
We
it's
added also
700
the
now.
cash. See, the cash
Yeah.
is the 500 plus the 200. Yeah, that's why I got 700. You can really think about it like the consolidated. It's the same as deleting this one and replacing it by adding those two and this one to those two and this one. Then you get the consolidated. In another word, in consolidated, turning non-consolidated balance sheets into consolidated, it's simply replacing the investment in capital in company B, okay, by what it is reflecting. And it is reflecting the difference between the assets to the liability. Excellent. More questions before I move on to the next? We're going to do 2 more cases, and then I want to make you expert. So if you come to the exam, there is no way you can really answer those questions in a couple minutes. That's the objective. And honestly, you shouldn't miss any point if you see a question like that. It should be really easy and natural. Third, when you get to graduate school, you really want to know a little bit more about merger and acquisitions. I will even advise you to take a whole course if there is a course offered in wherever you go for graduate school, okay? That's a very important topic. Needless to say, just open the Wall Street Journal and you will see every day how many acquisitions, how many mergers. It's almost a defect today. Any, I would say even small, but definitely mid-size to big size, you will see a lot of companies buying other companies. It's a way of expanding to other areas. It's instead of developing everything from scratch, you just buy a company that already have done it and you integrate it into your business. And needless to say, what Google does, Facebook, Amazon, you name it. Amazon even going out of their way, they even got into the whole food business, trying to utilize their inventions in so many other fields, like web services, their experience in retail, and all of that to even to conventional stores, but making them a little more sophisticated. You probably have heard on their investment in Seattle in the store called Go. They're trying to automate the whole process. It's beautiful. Now the board wholesale it's a chain in fact, and that just tells you that the whole issue of merger and acquisitions is quite a very serious topic. And it's related to our course because we need to do some adjustment, and those adjustments will be clear as we go along today. Okay, let's take the next case. The next case, I want to use the case in which the company have purchased 100% of stock B, but this time I'm assuming they overpaid in the sense they paid over the book value of company B. The book value of company B is 300. They have paid 400 for it. So if I were to ask you how much extra they have paid, you should say 100. Is that correct?
Yes.
Good. So that 100, we call it a goodwill. So what is the definition of a goodwill? It's the extra that a company is paying over the book value of whatever they purchased in another company. In this case, they purchased 100% of the book value of company B. The book value is only 300. They have paid 400. Therefore, the excess is goodwill. Okay, I want to make a point here. Many students get confused between goodwill and intangible assets. So first of all, a goodwill is also reflections of intangibles, because you will ask yourself why a company will want to pay more. Why a company will want to pay more, yeah? Why a company would like to pay more than the book value? And the simple reason is, it's just because, there's a lot of intangibles that don't come into place in the books from accounting point of view. I'll give an example. Could be a company that invested a lot in research and development, and according to the accounting rules, R&D not always can be capitalized and shown as an asset. especially before the IFRS. Under the IFRS, there's more flexibility that if you invest in developing some patents, you can capitalize those and show it as an asset. Under the previous accounting and under certain circumstances, even under the IFRS, a lot of investment in research and development end up as expenses. And therefore, the book value does not really reflect the true value of the assets of the company. There are more assets in the company than the balance sheet shows. So if I'm paying 400 over 300 book value, that reflects the fact that I'm aware that there are some assets that are not reflected by that difference of 1,000 minus 700. The assets might include some patents that are not, from accounting point of view, presented there. So I'm willing to pay for them. And to show that, we call them goodwill, and that is really like paying for intangibles. On the other hand, you might see a line says intangibles or patents that are really reflecting if a company have purchased a patent from another company. They didn't buy the whole company, but they bought just the patents they developed. In that case, whatever you paid for the patent will show as a separate line as a patent or as a good or as a intangible assets, etc. And different title like that. So, but goodwill, its reflections always presented as a separate line and represent the excess of what the company A have paid over the book value of the acquired company, in this case, company B. Okay, so you might see two titles, one intangibles, one in goodwill. Intangibles reflect purchasing of patents or intangible assets. Goodwill represent how much company A have paid over the book value of acquired subsidiary. Okay, so that's a really important distinguish. And we are interested in the goodwill for our purposes of corporate valuation. The intangibles, we do not add to the goodwill. Goodwill is whatever the company have paid over the book value of acquired company. Let's go now to another issue. What happened if the company have purchased only, let's say, 70% of company B? 70%, it's still above 50%. It shows substantial influence on company B. And let's say for the 70%, they have paid, let's just make it up, 350. Okay? In this case, we would like to ask, A, can we calculate the goodwill? You should know. Let's remind you. How do we calculate the goodwill? Anybody wants to help? We paid
The excess of the book value. Anything you
yeah,
pay,
how much is the book value they acquired?
the 0.7 times 30 was that
Beautiful.
270.
Beautiful. They bought only 70% of the 300. So that's the amount of book value they have acquired. So what the excess they have paid, it will be the 300 minus the 210. And that's exactly the goodwill. And we got that number right there. Now that becomes to be easy. Is that right?
Amos, can you just show that calculation again, please?
Definitely. Let's do it again. It's worth to even do it twice again. Really, honestly. It's not that, it doesn't come immediately unless you do it a couple times. Okay, stage number one, we ask, what is the share that company A have purchased from B? And we said it's 70% of their book value. So how much is 70%? Well, you know, I can even do it this way because I can just use the number right from here. They bought 70% of the book value of company B. I'll multiply, that's what they acquired. That's in the book value. How much money did they pay for it? It's given. They paid 350. Therefore, how much extra they have bought, paid, is the 350 minus the 210. That gives me the excess, the extra they paid above the book value. Is that clear?
Is it okay to
Thank
refer
you, yeah.
to goodwill as a premium? It's just a premium for all intents.
You can look at it as a premium. Yeah, some people even call it as a premium, but the professional name that you will see in financial statements, it's goodwill.
Okay.
Okay, more questions? If you need, I will do it one more time. In the exam, you need to get to a point. It takes you half a minute to calculate it. It's simple when you know. It's the 70% times the book value. That's what I acquired. How much did I pay? Over what I acquired, it is the goodwill. So this number should be really easy. That's one. If you see it in the exam, it should come. The immediate things you will do it, okay? Now, the next one, let me define clearly what a minority interest is, and then it becomes to be so easy. Minority interest is the book value of the shares that company A did not buy from the shareholders of company B. One more time. Minority interest, it's the interest of other shareholders that company A did not buy from shareholders of company B. In another word, company A have acquired 70% of the shares of company B. Therefore, what is the percentage that didn't buy?
30% times 300. It's a very
Exactly. So it would be 1 minus the 70% they have acquired. That's the percentage that didn't acquire. That's the percentage. How much is in book value? I'll multiply it by 300. That will be exactly what you said. 30% of the 300 will give you the 90. So minority interest, it is exactly the book value of the shares that company A did not acquire. So there's two numbers which are totally new to you, and both of them are so easy for you to calculate. It should take you exactly half a minute to each one of them. Just the time to write it down will take more time than even think about it. This one we know because it's the excess of what we paid for whatever we acquired in book value. The 90 is how much book value company A did not acquire. Okay, so I'm going to do the whole things manually now again, using this one in the bottom. That was the original. If you recall, this is exactly the books of A. What happened when they're buying 70% of company B and paying 350? Stage number one, my cash goes down to how much? To 150, is that right? Investment in company B becomes to be 350. So far is so good. That's,
Yeah.
you know, without, this is the books non-consolidated. It's just buying any asset. In this case, they just bought a subsidiary. But really the books, the accounting will be exactly that way. That will be the non-consolidated. Now we want to do the consolidated. So let me copy again the numbers that was there for company A. And here we have 150. And here we have 350. If you notice, I just copied this one right to here. Everything's here. It's exactly what I have here. Okay, what are the process to convert this one.
Shouldn't the assets of consolidated also be 500 at first?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, thank you. You're right. Excellent, thank you. Now it's balanced, you're absolutely right. Okay, now how do we take these balance sheets and take the steps? So even if we want to get confused, we can. And later on, we will practice a little bit. So in the exam, you can even take a shortcut and get those numbers immediately, okay? But let's see the concept. The concept is we're gonna replace this 350 in such a way you will represent the assets and liabilities of company B and also reflect the idea that some other people own some shares in company B. So let's do steps. Step number one, I'm taking this 350 and break it to two parts. The first one I call it goodwill as we did before. And the goodwill in this case was 140. Therefore, it means that I'm left here with 210. So far, everybody is happy. All what I did was very simple. I paid 350, and we know that we paid 210 for the book value and 140 extra as a goodwill. So far, I haven't done anything genius. It's a really simple accounting entry. The second step I would like to do is to reflect the fact that 210, it's not really the whole book value of company B. I do want to add here the 90 that belongs to someone else. I will call it other investors' investment in company B. I'm just making it up, really. Okay, and on the other hand, I will write here minority interest. That means somebody else really owed those 90. So really, if you look at it, I haven't done anything. The only thing is on the left side, I said somebody else owed 90 of something that is really reflecting the book value of company B. So in another word, I just added 90 on the right side. I added 90 on the left side. This is kept the balance and really didn't change any fact beside putting on the balance sheets that somebody else is owing some part of company B. Okay?
I have a question.
Sure.
If, let's say, company A also own, let's say, 51% of its own company, but there is other percentage that the other people own, so should it
hold on a
says it in the minority also, or no?
No, hold a second. Can you please rephrase your question and go slowly?
Okay, so if, let's say, company A own, I don't know, 60% of its company, of company A.
There's no such a thing.
Yeah, I mean, if company A issued like equity and they have sold, let's say, 40% of their company to the public,
Okay,
they have done an IPO.
Let me stop you. You're dealing with what is known as repurchase of your own shares. That's the accounting for that, it's totally different. That's not acquiring another business. It's
I'm
using the
not
number of
dealing with
shares.
it. I just want to understand if minority in this report also account for the
No.
shares that company A doesn't own of its own company.
No, it doesn't. So, but hold your question. I want to spend more time to talk about it. So when we finish, I will get back to your question, okay? Because what you're describing, it's not really an acquisition. It is really a repurchase of your own shares. And the treatment of it is totally different. So minority interest has nothing to do with transactions that the company purchasing its own shares. Okay, but I will get back to that, I promise. We'll have time. For now, we just concern only about the shares that company A have not purchased from another company, in this case, company B. They have acquired only 70%, so the 30%, the 90, it is not owned by company A. Therefore, as a middle step, we're putting the 90 in the left and the 90 in the right. It's like I haven't done anything, which in a second will show that in fact, I did do a lot, okay? If you have a good eyes, let me just move the location of these two numbers to the bottom, just to make it clearer. I haven't done really anything, I just moved it there, okay? Instead of being in this line, I just put it here. So let's move the whole things up a little bit. Nothing really changed, I just moved the goodwill under. If you have a good eye, you will notice now I have the 300 here, isn't it? This is exactly the 300 that representing the investment in B. It's exactly the 500 minus the 700. But this time, all this 300 doesn't belong to company A, part of which is the 90, belongs to minority interest. When we do consolidated financial statement now, and we want to turn this one to a consolidated statement, all what we have to do is what we did before. We will delete those 300 and put back again the assets and liability of company B. So we'll go back again here, we put it here, we add 500, we'll add here another 500, and we will add here another 700, give me 1400. That's really done. We have the financial consolidated. I just moved this one a little up.
Shouldn't the cash be 650 and not 150 because you had 150 plus 500?
Maybe yeah, you're right. I just had to add another 100. You're absolutely right. That should be 600. I'm just reorganize it. Usually you don't really put it under, you put it above the equity. You don't put minority, it's just I didn't want to play with that. Okay, so what do we really have? On the right side, we have the cash, we have the assets, we have the extra we paid for the whatever we purchased. On the left side, we have the debt, we have our own equity and the minority interest. The only thing is in real life, you never put this one as the last one, as in the middle, you put it in the bottom. But this will be just like that in real life.
Amos, can I ask you a technical question?
Sure, definitely. But let me just finish this one for a second, and I will give you all the time to ask whatever. Okay, 1 second. If you notice, this is really the way the balance sheet will look like. We have cash, assets, goodwill, liability, whatever doesn't belong to us, and the equity. Pay attention, equity haven't changed. And that's exactly what we see here. I'll go over that one more time, but let's have some people ask questions. Go ahead, your time.
About minority interest, we were saying that it's money that wasn't purchased by company A, right?
Correct.
So why would something that not purchased by the company would show on the balance sheet?
Oh, because according to it's a wonderful question, because according to the accounting rule, without getting into accounting reasoning, the rule says when you consolidate, you don't consolidate only 70% what you acquire. You consolidate 100%. So we adding 100% of company B into the consolidation. But if we put 100% of what company B is, then we are misleading because 30% doesn't belong to company A. So we have to take it into account and say Well, out of whatever we added here, 90 belongs to someone else.
All right, so Baba, and about goodwill, it's money that is paid in excess of book value, right?
Of company B. Of company B, you're right.
Yeah, and it's like technically calculated due to market value, right? We see that the market value is higher than the book value, so we offer
Absolutely
more
right.
money for the company. But
Absolutely right.
why would that be? No, never mind. I see it. Never mind.
Wonderful.
Got it now.
So
I have a
let's
question.
do an exercise and do it together, okay? I'm going to make up an example and I want you guys to answer. I'm going to delete those numbers here. I still owe somebody a question, answer about repurchase of shares. I will get back to that in a minute. I'm erasing here the numbers and you guys are going to tell me, here's company A, here's company B. Company A is buying, let's make it 75%, what the heck, okay? And for the 75%, whatever they're buying in company B, okay, they're paying for it, let's say, I don't know how much, just make it up, 380. So I would have a nice numbers to play with. Anybody wants to fill up manually this part? Is someone wants to start with the goodwill? It's easy. This should take you half a minute.
Yeah, they paid 75% of 300. You do that calculation.
Okay, so let's go slowly. Thank you, very good. But let's go slowly so everybody will follow.
Sure. So for the goodwill,
We purchase 75 of
300.
the 300. So we purchase 225. How much did we pay for it?
380.
Beautiful.
So-
So we want to know the goodwill has to be
So we paid 155 in excess.
minus
Goodwill.
whatever we acquired in the book. That should be the goodwill. So the goodwill will have to be 155. Is anybody disagree? Anybody thinks differently? Anybody can do it immediately if I put it in the exam?
I think we're good.
Beautiful. Let's move
And
on.
the minority
The next
interest.
easy one. The next easy one. It's minority interest. What's
Yeah.
the definition of minority interest?
It's the 25% that it's still in the hands of company. B.
Beautiful. So it will be 1 minus whatever we acquired. That will give me the 25%, which I did not acquire as company A. Multiply it by the book value. That was really easy. So this one also I can plug right here, 75. You know, we don't really have to go through the whole process. After we really, our brain understand it, it comes immediately. What else? It's really easy. Immediately. You
The
should-
equity still stays the same for company A.
Excellent. 300 here doesn't change. There has no reason to change. Now we got at least 50%, a hard 50%, I will call it. Okay, we have 3 more numbers to add. So anybody wants to tell me the assets? How do I calculate the assets?
The assets stay the same, right?
Yeah, it'll be 1,000 here.
So who wants to tell me exactly how much should I write here? Equal to.
1,000. We should add
Exactly.
both of the
That's what you
assets.
say it. 500 plus 500. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
500
But
of
I have a question
company
though.
A, 500 of company B. That's really what it is. How about liabilities?
The debt is it's the combination of the two, just like the assets.
Of the two. Beautiful. So in the best way to say it, 700 plus 700. That will be. Now, even if you want to be wrong, you always can add up the left side and the right side and plug whatever comes to the big cash. But we want to do it by knowing, not by using accounting. How much cash really left? The company, when company A acquired 75% of company B, they have departed from 380. They used
So
to
we just do 500 minus 380 plus 500.
Beautiful. So let's do it. 500, I love it. That's wonderful. Minus 380 plus the cash of company B. must be balanced. I'm done. If I give you an exam question like that, it should take you exactly 2 minutes, including write-up. Shouldn't take longer than that, unless you haven't taken this session. Is that right?
Yeah, but I don't understand why people look at the consolidated, because I mean, if let's say I want to confuse someone that doesn't know too much accounting, so I'm buying, I don't know, like 10% of a company that have a lot of cash, and then it will boost my cash like very much, you know, and you will not see it because you don't know what is minority interest, right?
Now, what if you buy only 10%, you don't have a consolidated financial statement, you have to buy more than 50%.
Oh, okay. So there is a rule for
Yeah, that's what we said
for
before.
having.
You have consolidated financial statement only if you have a substantial influence. And there are 4 rules really when it's considered substantial influence. And the one that is what is known as an automatic rule, if you acquire more than 50%, it's automatically considered that you have substantial influence.
But why don't we plug only? Let's say I have buy 75% of it, so I own 75% of their cash. It will be more logical and easier to work with. You know, like to understand really what the company have as cash. You know what I mean?
No, but I tell you why. The logic is if I bought 75% of company B, I most likely can do whatever I want in company B. And if I tell them, send me all your cash, they will send all the cash. And I don't really ask those 25% anything. That's the idea. It's true that I own only 75%, but I have such an influence that I can really make them do anything I want. This is really a big topic, by the way. This is why I recommend to everyone to do. And if you are interested in finance, it's a really, there's so many other topics which you definitely cannot cover in undergraduate. It's about strategy, about acquisitions, about, I give you other examples. Today, there's a new phenomena that companies issues more than one type of common stock. In fact, I should be more careful in my language. They issue regular common stock. They issue common stock that has no voting right. They only get dividend. And they issue also shares that they only has voting rights, but they don't have any cash rights, meaning they never get dividend. And you ask yourself, why did they issue all those kinds? I'll give you an example like Google. Google has 3 types of shares. One that has no voting rights, meaning if you don't get dividend, you can't complain, you can't even vote, you cannot say anything. Another one that it's similar to that, but that one has 1 voting right, meaning you can raise your voice, but most likely nobody will listen to you. But at least you can raise your voice. You have 1 voting right in the general meeting. And there is another type of stock that gives you 10 voting rights on every share and also give you the rights to get dividend. And believe it or not, in Google, 57% of the voting rights are being owned by the 3 founders of the company. In another word, if you're buying any shares of Google, you really have no say. And if Google don't want to distribute dividend any time in the future, your share is, theoretically at least, it's useless because you will never get a penny out of them. And that becomes to be a real big topic. So your questions are extremely valuable, extremely important, but unfortunately this course is, all those questions are beyond the scope of this course. But I love your question and I think I would strongly recommend you try to get an MBA and take more courses in strategy, merger and acquisitions, advanced finance. A lot of people running into the fintech as if the whole world is going to be a fintech. Take my word for it. It is going to be with a lot of fintech, but there's a lot of conceptual things you will never change. And they are not less important, like topics we just discussed now. So I will spend my time in graduate school on both topics. I wouldn't ignore the other one. Okay, before I move on, I want to go back to the guy that have asked about repurchase of stock when a company buy its own stock. Is that guy still with us?
Yes.
Good. If you remember, you ask, what do I do when a company is buying its own stock? Think about it. Think about what happened when a company issues their own stock. When a company issues their own stock, the cash in the bank account of that company goes up, and the shareholders just have more shares. So far, so good. Is that right?
Yeah.
When a company is purchasing its own shares, it's the inverse transaction. The cash in the bank account goes down, and the number of shares will go down as well. So the way we treat in accounting when a company buying its own shares is the cash goes down and the equity goes down. I will take just this example, I will just make it up. I want this to
And the equity goes up, no?
So here I will do it. I take company A, I'll put it aside here so you can play with it. Okay, let's say company A decided to buy 50 out of the equity. What will happen now? Right after this transaction, we'll write it again here so we can compare. What really will happen is the cash will go down by 50, so I will have 450. And the equity will go down by 50, it will turn to be 250. That's the way I will treat if a company is purchasing its own equity. It's not like, you know, you'll have a minority interest. Simply those shares don't exist anymore. Nobody's holding.
Isn't that emitting new shares? Because
One more time.
I mean, they have less shares now. So they
Exactly.
should
What
receive
happened to the
cash for it.
shares? What happened to the shares the company purchased? You can tear them up. You can throw them to the garbage. Usually don't do it. You just put it in the CFO drawer because later on you might reissue them again if you want. But basically that's the inverse of issuing more equity. If this company were issuing another 200, it will be 450 and the cash will go down up by another 200 will give me 650. That's when you're issuing more shares. Yeah, I think I screwed up here. That should be 450 if I'm not wrong. Yeah. Okay, so when a company issuing shares, they have more equity and the bank account goes up. When a company is purchasing its own shares, the cash goes down and the equity goes down. Hope that's clear, yeah?
Okay, but why it is destroying your equity? I mean,
You're not
shouldn't it
destroying.
be?
No, you're not destroying. Just think about it when usually, let's go back to how a company is being established. A company usually, I call it like a balloon. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that, you know, you send your registration to the Secretary of State. You say you want to establish a company. And you fill up those 2 pages, you send it, and the only things you have to write on those papers is to say who is going to be the secretary of the company, who is going to be the CEO, and where the company going to be conducting business, meaning where is the office, and nobody will resist if you say it's your bedroom. Nobody cares. Okay, 3 weeks or 3 weeks later, or a few weeks later, you get a letter that you have a company. But that company has nothing. Is that right? It's just a piece of paper saying there is a company. What do you need to do now? You take those papers you got from the Secretary of State and you go to the bank. And you say, I want to open a new bank account for the company. That's not yours. You are the owner. You are the one that established that company. But you're opening a bank account on behalf of the company. So the company has its own bank account. The first transactions you will do now, as an owner usually, you take, let's say, $10,000 from your own pocket and put it in the bank account of the company. And what the company is giving you in return, they give you shares. So when you register with the Secretary of State, you tell them that your own company can issue up to, let's say, 1 million shares. Each share is $1,000. It's $1. So when you put $10,000 in the bank account of the company gives you 10,000 shares because each share is $1. And it's kind of funny because the one that does all of that, it's you. You are the owner. But you are as an officer acting on behalf of the company as if it is a real person that has a bank account, has his own shares. So see the situation. The Secretary of State allows you to distribute up to 1 million shares. Stage number one, you don't really need to issue 1 million shares. You only issued 10,000 to yourself. And pay attention, you are distinguished from the company. You are a different person than the company. Company has its own life. It's a different entity. So by issuing a 10,000 shares, you are the only owner of the company because there is only 10,000 shares out there. Now, let's say me and you having a dinner together and you convince me to invest in your company. What does that really mean? I said, no problem, I will invest 50,000. And then you say, wow, great. And I say, well, how many shares will you give me? So let's assume you are a nice guy and you issue me 50,000 shares. So how many shares the company has now? 60,000, is that right? You follow?
Not really. Can you repeat how many shares I have? What is the 100%
Let's start
share?
all over. Let's do it here. I'll just delete this one. I don't know if they did that exercise with you. They should when you were in the first year. I'm deleting everything. Deleting everything. You made a new company. First stage, you issue yourself 10,000. You put 10,000 in the bank account of the company. Transaction number one. So far, so good. No other assets. We haven't done anything yet.
Okay, I get that. And then he gives you 50,000 and you say, okay, I will issue 50,000.
Amos, come and invest in my company. I said, no problem. You're giving me another 50. So we have 60,000 now. Is that right? You have 10, I have 50. How much in our bank account? 60,000. So far, so good.
Yeah.
We're doing businesses, we're buying some assets, we're selling them. Let's assume we're not taking any loans from anybody. Whatever we buy, we're buying shoes and sell them immediately. We don't have any assets. And we made a profit of 20,000. So how much cash we have now? 80,000, is that right? Because we made a profit. That profit belongs to us. We put it in the retained earning. We have 20,000. So far, so good?
Yeah.
Good. Now I got rid of it and I want to get rid of, I go to the company, I come to you, in fact, I said, you know, buy my shares. So there's two people can buy my shares. You can buy my shares, somebody else can buy my shares, and the third one, it's the company itself can buy my shares. I want to get rid of my 50,000. How can we do that? You can come to me and give me money. I give you my shares and you be the only owners. It will not have any effect on the company. Can you see that? One more time. Don't forget, you own 10,000 shares. I own 50,000 of shares. So far, so good? I can come to you and say, what's your name, by the way?
Sasha.
Sasha. I said to you, Sasha, listen, buy for me those 50,000. I want to get out. I have other businesses to do. And you say, okay, I will buy your shares. Pay attention. If you as Sasha buy my shares, it has no effect on the company. You can come to me and say, you know what, Amos, 50,000, you owe about 5/6 of the 20,000. I will give you 65,000, go away. So I take the 65,000 from your pocket. Now I have no more shares and all the shares belongs to you, Sasha. There is no effect on the company. You are now the only owner of these. I'm out.
And why the shares doesn't go down? Because I have bought
Why
50,000.
should it? Hold a second. Remember what happened. I sold the share to you. How many shares are out there? 60,000, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
Company
So
issued
if you sell to
60,000.
the owner,
The owner is different. Now is only Sasha. Didn't you do those games when you study accounting?
yeah, but not with, I don't remember with that.
Just think about it logically. The company issued 60,000 shares. They are still out. The only thing it should say here, Sasha. I hope I spell it right. Did I spell it right? Most likely not.
No, it's S-A-C-H-A.
S-A,
C-H-A.
like that.
Yeah.
The owner of those 60,000 is Sasha. Now, see what can happen now. Let's do a different transaction. Okay, Sasha had 10,000 before. And Amos had 50,000, remember? That's going to be totally different transaction. I go to the company, I don't go to you. You're not paying me anything, so I go to the company. And I said, please buy my shares back. I said, no problem. We will give you 65,000 for the 50,000 shares. How will be the book? How will be the balance sheets of the company if the company buy my shares? See, they're paying me 65,000, so they will have 65,000 less in the bank account. Is that right? Agree? Do you agree or no?
If I agree, again, can you do it again?
Yeah. See, I went to the company and I said, please buy my shares back. We negotiate. I negotiate with the managers of the company. And he said, okay, no problem. The company will buy your shares. So that give me 65,000. If they give me 65,000, how much they have left in their bank account now?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree.
It will be 15,000. Is that right?
Yeah.
But now the equity cannot be 60. You agree? Because those 50 don't exist anymore. I give them back the 50 and they can tear them up. So I will have only 10,000 that belongs to Sasha because Sasha didn't give anything. And I will reduce that one to 5,000. And that becomes to be balanced again. They took my 50,000, they tear them up, they don't need them anymore, or they just keep it in the drawer. And they gave me definitely 15,000 out of the profit from last year. You know, the 20,000, they gave me 15. So that's why I left with total equity 15. That's totally different transactions and acquiring another business. Does that make sense? This one is
Yeah,
really
thank you.
bonus point that I'm giving you here. It's so important to know it, especially for business students. Extremely, extremely important. Pay attention. This is a really excellent example. Follow it, see the video. I will upload the video. Please do follow it. It's very, very important. I would like to conclude this session by, first of all, to remind you why we study the whole topic. And a really important number is this one. And why? If you look at the simulation, we're doing a net present value. We get to the net present value of the company as a whole. That is the market value of the equity and the debt of the company. We take out the debt, that should be belongs to the equity. But hold a second. If this company has some subsidiaries and those subsidiaries have some minority interest, that means that the value of the company don't belongs entirely to me. Doesn't belong to the shareholders of this company, part of which belongs to the minority interest. It's like in this Excel. Okay? Part of the value of the assets or the cash flow, whatever valuation we do, belongs to someone else. So if I want to get to the value of the equity, I take the value of the whole company. That's really what we get. The market value in this simulation, okay? It really is like the market value of the right side of the balance sheet. It's like the market value of the right side. So from the market value of the right side, we have to subtract debt. That's what we do, like in the case of, I think this one was Amazon. We subtract the debt. But if they have some minority interest, we must deduct it as well. It's like taking the total market value of the assets, subtract the debt, subtract the interest, minority interest, and then we get to the value of the equity. And that market value of the equity will divide by number of shares and get the market value per share. Okay, so that's why we have to subtract minority interest, and that's why we had the whole session today, so we can understand why we have to subtract minority interest. Extremely important topic, especially those days. There are a lot of companies buying a lot of other companies, and that becomes to be in some companies extremely valuable number. By the
So
way,
we have to subtract? To subtract
yeah,
to who?
you have to subtract, like from this one, you subtract the debt, and you subtract
And the minority?
and you subtract minority interest. By the
Okay.
way, I have noticed that the data that I pull from the SEC not always complete. It's hard for me to believe that Amazon don't have any minority interest or might be it's not that substantial. I would recommend that when you're writing your paper, download the annual report of 2019 and look at the balance sheet if it doesn't have minority interest. If it does have minority interest, just type it in here, it automatically will put it in the server and all your calculation will be updated accordingly, okay? So there's other numbers, by the way, also if you look at the interest expense, sometimes they don't report for it. Let me see here. No, here they did. Some companies, for some reason, don't report interest expense in the conventional way. And then when you pull the data from the SEC, it shows you zero when it really isn't a zero, really. It's more than a zero. So just make sure, if you do Amazon, for example, I would definitely download the annual report and make sure that there is no minority interest. If there is, plug the number right here in the data, and then you automatically will put it here in the right way and do all the other calculations for you. Another thing is preferred stock. By the way, it's so uncommon today. Companies don't really issue preferred stock as used to be in the 90s. So it's already going to be an issue, so I won't waste too much time besides saying you have to subtract preferred stock as well because we're trying to value the shareholders, the common shareholders. What do I mean by that? Usually when a company issue preferred stock, it means they have two types of equity, common stock and preferred stock. So if I want to arrive to the value of only the equity, I take the market value of all the assets, and from that I subtract the debt, so I subtract the minority interest, and if it's there a preferred stock, I will subtract also the preferred stock as well. Okay, so that's why in the simulation you will see subtractions of preferred stock. I have seen that in the data, Amazon doesn't have preferred stock. That's another number you might want to check. Most likely this is correct. I doubt that Amazon has preferred stock. It's very non-common today to issue preferred stock. Just because there's so many other instruments a company can issue, so it becomes to be much less common than it used to be once. Okay, we have another 2 to 5 minutes to 4 minutes. I would love to hear more questions, clarifying any issue. What do you say, guys? Turn on your video. Let's see you guys. I'll turn mine too so I can say hello to you and hi, everyone. Anybody? Yoav? Yeah, here you are. You're still awake. That's good. I wouldn't make it if I were you. And a session like that, so heavy duty, your brain probably exploded. I'm just making fun, yeah, not meaning.
No, it was okay. I think we followed for the most part. It wasn't rocket science here.
Good. I think it will be useful also for your paper, for the exam. So good. I'm glad to hear that. Sasha, what do you say? Turn on your video. Let's see you.
Yeah, it was, one sec. Yeah, it was a good session. Really like
Yeah,
it.
thank you. I like your question as well. And the other question as well. This is perfect. This is really a very important topic. I'm glad that you could. Thank you, guys, and see you next week. Study hard, yeah? Don't stay for the last minute, okay?
Of course not.
Good luck, guys.